Hi, everyone. So, I believe that canvas, like your life is a canvas, and it's what you make of it. He said, I am an artist from Providence, and I create murals around the city. I didn't always create murals, so when Peter had asked me to come on here, I was just like, what am I gonna talk about? You know how hard it is to speak about something you love to do? Like, how do you explain that? Because everybody has their own coping mechanism. Everyone has something that they do, and explaining that is really difficult. So I was just like, okay, well, I'm just gonna treat it like an empty canvas, which is, you have to layer on it. And I wanna show you guys basically the layers of what I went through as an artist and as a person. So I wanted to make sure that everything I did was around how I felt and made me feel good, not just to do something because that's what the world is asking from me as an artist, but just simply be myself. A lot of people ask me all the times, and a lot of people who know my work, they know that my thing is butterflies. But butterflies didn't evolve in my life until I evolved as a person. And they just randomly just started popping up in my art. And so I wanted to make sure that I explain the whole process and you guys will see that, like, the butterflies start popping up just randomly once I start healing. And so it's not just about my art, but how I healed and then how I basically portray my community. So when I was a kid, I grew up in a household with like 10 other kids, and I was very introvert. I was very just, it was hard to speak up for myself, especially, I'm the chubbiest one, I'm the youngest one, and so, I always just caught myself just drawing in the back or just very introverted kid. But one thing that was always really consistent as a kid was going to restaurants and always finding those crayons with the pages. That was like my thing. Until today, I still do that. So when we would go to, meetings with, my counselor, or, visiting a caseworker, or going to school counselor, one thing that was always given to me was a paper and crayons. So that was always my way of outlet. So as I got older, I went to Dominican Republic to live with family, and I went through a lot there, and I went through a lot of trauma, but upon returning back, I went to college and was able to be myself finally, and I discovered painting. And so when I was in DR, the number thing was they try to picture, especially like a cultural thing, they try to picture you into this person that I just was not. So at the time, my stepmom, and she was just like, do whatever you want to love. She was like, she works for banking, so she was always trying to put me in button-ups, and I'm just like, that's just not who I wanted. And I purposely would dress super gothic. But it was just the point that I just didn't know who I was, because it was the first time ever someone would tell me, be who you want to be. So first thing that I wanted to tackle was body imaging. And it was that sense that, especially in Hispanic culture, being a big girl was not okay. You had to look a certain way, small waist, big hips, and that's just not who I was. So my way of portraying this was painting it on canvas, so that way I can see, like, this is what a real woman looks like. She has rolls, she has chichos, and so I wanted to make sure I put that out there, because I was seeing a lot of artists put all these beautiful women, curvy bodies, but that's just not who I was. So I wanted to be that representation. So after I started getting such a good response from the women around me, they're like, oh my gosh, looks like me. And I started feeling okay with how I look like, and confident. And so now I'm just like, okay, so I got that down and packed. So now it's internal healing. It's the mind, and it's healing from all the trauma. I will never, and no one will ever, fully heal from trauma, but it's learning how to live with it and cope with it. So due to PTSD that I had, I would have these really horrible dreams. And so I was just like, how do I get this away? Like, I don't want to keep, like, it's defocusing. I couldn't sleep. It would be times that I would stay up days at night. And it's hard to explain to someone what you've been through. So I was like, well, maybe if I put it on canvas and I put it out there, people will see that, I'm a normal, I might have trauma and all of these things. And so I put it on canvas, and I finally was able to get it off of my mind. And I never had that dream ever again. And that's when the moment I realized that this was my calling. I was able to put something on canvas and remove completely that pain. So I kept going, and unfortunately, there was a time where I had some depression like we all go through, and anxiety, and I was institutionalized. And so if anybody in the crowd knows, you're not allowed to have sharp objects, no pencils, no pens. You're a danger to yourself, you're a danger to others. So me being an artist and trying to express myself was difficult because I didn't have no creative materials to do that, and group therapy was just not for me. And I didn't want to talk to my therapist either, because it was more of like a cultural understanding. He didn't know where I was coming from. So he finally gave in and let me draw. And I created this masterpiece. It was called Mental Growth. And it was the fact that like my hair is like trees. And so I want to be able to grow my hair like I grow my mind and our mental health. So I finally healed and left the Institute. And so upon getting back, I told myself, I want to paint my canvas how I wanted to paint it. I don't want nobody to paint my life how I want it. So I'm going to take this first step, and I'm going to pull out the canvas. And for me was going back to my social media and, okay, I'm going to take my art serious because this is something I really love to do. And I had gotten reached out by a woman who said, hey, I saw one of your paintings. I would love to put your painting on a wall. And I didn't even know muralism exists. Like, you can paint on a building and get paid for it? What? So I'm just like, okay, she's gonna pay me, that's awesome. So one thing was like, okay, I'm used to painting how I feel. How do I go to a community and paint what they feel? Because it's kind of like, I can't sit here and represent the whole community. That would be wrong of me. So what I did was I took about 2 days, I just walked around the neighborhood, got to know who was living in that area, and it was a lot of Latin descent. And during the time, unfortunately, they had this group of kids whose parents were taken away from them due to deportation. And so when their parents dropped them off, ICE appeared and removed all the parents. So now these kids are in a center where, they don't have anybody. They barely speak English. You know how terrifying that is? So, okay, what do I paint on this wall? So I painted myself because I realized walking around this neighborhood, it's not about what I put and represent them, but about just taking the moment to just listen to their story. And not many people do that to them, especially being of the descent that they come from. So I painted myself blind with a mask, which is coincidence because this is in 2017, so masks weren't even thought about. So I was going through my Facebook after I had painted this, and a journalist from a different state said, hey, messaged me, hey, by the way, I was with my family on vacation, and we went to Salem, Massachusetts, and we came across your painting, and there was this group of kids who were running up to it and hugging it and said, oh, that looks like my tia, that looks like my cousin. So that was my second sign. This is what I'm meant to do. So, sorry if I get emotional. I get super emotional during these pieces. So then after I did that mural, I was like, okay, well, I'm good at being able to reflect how I feel based on other people and what I'm around. So what's the best people then to paint my own family and friends that are around me, that are going through depression? And it's the point of, when you're in the depression mode, you're so hyper-focused on what's wrong with you as to what is good with you. So I created these paintings where I depicted them in such a beautiful way that it's not the image, but how the image makes you feel when you pass by it. So I don't know if you could see these paintings, but there's something, it was more of emotion that I was painting as to who they were. And I wanted to let them know, I'm here for you, and you're a beautiful person, and you're gonna get through this, like we all will. So as that started evolutioning, I was like, okay, well, now I have like a portfolio to present to the world. So I applied for my first mural here in Providence. And this was the first ever fist in Providence, which was actually super scary to the people I was working with. So I wanted, okay, how do I represent Providence? So I painted a side portrait of myself in different angles and put the flags that are most popular, like the cultures that are most popular, and their earrings to represent the cultures that are in Providence mostly. And then I put a fist with a female symbol. Now, at the time, came up to me and told me, if this becomes controversial, we will have to paint over it. And I said, that's fine. Now, mind you, this is behind the facade wall. So as is, I thought it wasn't even gonna get attention because it's not even on the main road. False. It actually got way more attention than the front of the building that was way bigger. It had front cover and everything. And I'm not sure if you guys know, but the fist derives from two African American who were there in the Olympics in Mexico, and they wore a black glove. And upon coming onto the podium, when they won first and second place, they raised their fist. And it's not a sense of negativity, but it was a sense of they went through so much injustice within the Olympics, and they're still winning, even through all the stuff. And it's the whole sense, I felt like that. I'm a woman, plus size, and at the time, really, BIPOC women in the arts was not really a thing until after pandemic came, and then everybody's going with the trend. So I wanted to make sure that I was that first person, and it created such a conversation and just became beautiful. So pandemic hit, no job, everybody's like losing their minds. So I was part of a protest, and my little brother was involved very much into just speaking up for the community. And so I had seen that there was some riots that had happened, and everybody knows about those riots. So what had happened is they found out we were gonna have a protest. Now, mind you, the rioters are not the protesters. So a few businesses had approached me and said, hey, they're boarding up my windows because it had gotten smashed. So we need to do something. So I was the first artist to come out there and paint these boards that are on their windows. And so I did it mostly because I don't want the media to depict us in a way that they want to. I wanted to depict how we wanted to be depicted. And when they're recording, I don't want behind my people to be all these wooden panels like we're criminals, because they're quick to say riots instead of saying protesters. So I wanted to make sure I painted it nice and beautiful. So when the cameras do come on, it's a community that came together and did something beautiful. So I wasn't gonna paint someone who also passed because I refused to wait for one of my people to die to then represent them. So I painted Miss Rhode Island, and it was a sense of she's a Black woman and she's representing a community and she's still alive. And then I also paint Joe, who was the head actor at Trinity. So then I have small businesses reaching out, and they're like, I need something. So a small business reached out, she's like, come to my salon, what is missing? What are you feeling? I'm like, well, first of all, you need representation. Someone, when you have people coming, you want people to feel welcomed. Like, she will understand my hair. So I depicted a woman with dreads and the leaves. There was a lot of plants in her salon, and I wanted to be able to put these plants in as a sense of growth. And being a woman of color, like, our hair is very important. Don't play with my hair. So I wanted to make sure that was known. So after this, okay, now I have to do more because for those who know me, I can't stop. It's just like go, go, go all the time. So I was just like, all right, so when these students come back from school from the pandemic, what do they have to look forward? Back to the classes. Now they're gonna come antisocial. So they don't really have anything to look up to. So I painted this amazing mural, and it was the whole sense of be the leader, not the follower. And it's the sense you have this big golden fist, be that leader, don't be everybody else. Do something that you love to do, not because someone else is doing it, because you genuinely love what you do. So then URI reached out to me, and they're like, we need something too. So they're like, you could put a gallery, whatever, but no painting on the wall. As you can see, I did not listen to that. So I'm a leader, I'm not a follower. So he immediately learned that lesson. So, and I never got a graduation, last gallery, senior gallery, whatever everybody calls it. So I made sure that the kids who were on campus, so imagine going through what I was going through and being through the pandemic, probably would have never made it. And that's what I thought. I want someone who looks like me to walk by and see a painting. They're like, oh my gosh, she looks like me. And that was that sense. So I painted it. He walked in and was like, I was just like, well, I could just paint over it. It's not a big deal. So it was beautiful. It came out beautiful. And eventually they rolled over it. But then I had the opportunity to be the first artist to ever paint on Providence housing exterior walls, not just one, but two side to side. And the theme was past, present, and future. How do I do that in such a big community? So we were the jewelry district. There was a lot of immigrants, a lot of Irish, a lot of Italians who fled into the country. And, that area was where they went. So that's our ancestors, and the middle being the community that we're living in, and then the future being our kids. What do we want our kids to learn? So even watching the kids come around, they're like, oh my God, you paint that by yourself? And I'm like, they're like so fascinated with it. It's pretty cool. They're like, can I get on the lift with you? And I'm like, no, you can't. It's a safety hazard. But I would if I could. And then I got reached out to paint the biggest mural in Rhode Island. And this was amazing because I worked with 5 other BIPOC who are from Philadelphia and Puerto Rico. And to think that they reached out to me out of anybody in Providence, I was the person. I felt blessed because not a lot of things like this come across. And it was representing the Native American community. And then last year, I was able to stay away from downtown and rep myself and more on the west side, where I'm originally from, and paint my community in different aspects. And it just felt great to have that response and know that the kids look at me and be like, you look like me. And that was just such a big difference to be able for them to pass by and do that. So now in the winter, I struggled. I'm like, okay, how am I gonna make money in the winter? Because I can't be out in the snow. So I started doing portraits, and I discovered a talent that I have. I'm really fast at painting. And so I would challenge myself because I just love challenges. They gave me 2 hours. And they're like, do this big painting. And so I would paint pictures of someone who was in the event that I thought was really impactful. And so I painted a few people's and would give it to them and would just literally limit myself to 2, max 3 hours. And it became a thing where people were actually paying me to come paint live. So it's, again, you paint your own destination. And you don't have to go through the same path that looking at everybody. You can create your own career. Because I didn't even know I could even do that. So now I'm like, that's like a career that's being built myself. So then I had my first celebrity commission, and let me tell you much. I look back and I was like, oh my God, I made it. But it's the fact that like people look up to these celebrities and I meet them in person. I'm just like, you are a regular person just like me. You go through the same things that you mean. You just were able to use a creative form to express yourself, and people love that. And I look back and I said, wow, that's exactly what I'm doing. So again, it comes naturally. So then I was able to reach out, and I was told to make a commission for A Boogie, which was absolutely amazing, and on Black History Month. And it was him and his kids. And then I got to meet Kid Leroy, who was a shy person and really shy individual. And then on stage was like a rock star. It was amazing to see what art can do to one, like as a healing mechanism. And then I got to meet Don Tolliver, which was really cool. But ultimately, we all have canvases. Our life is a canvas. So how you layer it is on you. If you don't like it, just what? Paint over it. Paint a new picture. It doesn't matter. Nobody is perfect. And I work with kids, and I always tell them, be you at all times. Because eventually, people will notice you because you are you. You're not trying to be something else. And if you don't like it, just paint it over again. Thank you.